ago, and they got the photos to prove it. To say nothing of physical violence, surveillance of children, and imprisonment of family members that some American citizens have faced. One Chinese American citizen was even detained against her will in China for 8 months while she was pregnant. I've spoken to dozens of dissidents from China and human rights activists. It's rare to find someone who hasn't experienced at least some low-level form of digital harassment from CCP agents. And I'm sure many of you here today have experienced that. So I thank you for your bravery in coming out today. How have we allowed this to happen on American soil? The answer, in my opinion, is that we have been blind while the CCP has been very cunning. Their threats are often hard to prosecute because they're veiled. It's sort of like saying, you know, nice family you got here. It would be a shame if something happened to them. It's a mafia-like threat because the CCP acts like the mafia. They buy off politicians, multinational organizations, companies, and in some cases law enforcement. They use muscle and threats instead of persuasion. And like the mafia, they aren't afraid to make people disappear. But there's one important difference. Unlike the mafia, the CCP has a much more powerful arsenal at their disposal to back up their strong-arm intimidation tactics, advanced technology, weaponry, artificial intelligence. They're using a terrifying version of Orwellian techno-totalitarian surveillance to inflict total totalitarian control on the Uyghurs in the Xinjiang region, on Tibetans, and during the zero COVID lockdowns on citizens throughout China. Now, they want to export that repression around the world. And the only thing standing in their way is our will to defend our values. We must stand up, push back, and protect our citizens and the many reformers, freedom fighters, and asylum seekers, many of whom I see here today, who've taken refuge here in the United States. We cannot allow the threat that they have fled to follow them to our shores here in America. The FBI director recently testified that the FBI was opening up a new CCP investigation every 10 hours. Every 10 hours, a new CCP investigation. We in Congress, and I'm honored to have my two colleagues here, Dr. Neil Dunn, Congressman Richie Torres, in bipartisan fashion here today. We in Congress need to make sure that the FBI has the training and resources to deal with this threat. Not just at the FBI headquarters in DC, but at every local field office across the country. And it can't just be federal law enforcement. It needs to be local police trained on this as well. If a victim is brave enough to come forward, no repressive act orchestrated by a foreign government should ever fall on deaf ears. That's a basic promise we make to everyone in the United States, no matter what their background. Together, we will end this transnational repression. We will end this ugly affront to our sovereignty. And we will make sure that the United States is a haven from prosecution, not a hunting ground for authoritarians. Thank you very much for being here today. Now, I'm honored to introduce a true freedom fighter, Joe Feng Suo, who was a leader in the student movement at Tiananmen, who's been speaking bravely about these issues for decades, before I was even born, who was at one point one of the 5 most wanted men in China, I believe, who's president of the Human Rights in China organization. Please join me in welcoming Joe Feng Suo. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Congressman Mike Gallagher. Thank you, Congressman Richie Torres. Thank you, Congressman Neil Dunn. We are honored to have you here.
This is the first time that the Chinese dissident community feel that their grievance is heard by American public. You are representative of America. We are here because of you. Thank you. You just met my friend Yonghong.
大家好，大家好。
He was a political prisoner in China, arrested twice for 2 years, simply calling for disclosure of the assets of government officials. He was tortured, beaten, and he had to escape to United States for safety of him and himself and his family. But 4 years ago, not too far from here, on the street of Manhattan, he was brutally beaten by Chinese thugs, and he had to be sent by ambulance for emergency medical treatment. And there are a few of them who are here today. What's more, the police did nothing, and they arrested one person, one perpetrator on the spot. He was released within the same day. There's nothing done after that. We want justice.
We want justice.
We want justice.
We want justice.
We cannot allow this to happen in American land. We cannot allow this to happen in this land of free and brave. We are here because we believe in freedom, and we will fight for freedom. Today, there will be echoing rallies in Los Angeles and San Francisco. Why? Because everywhere we have been ignored, marginalized, because of CCP's influence through trade and technology, and because they control so many communities here through the organizations like this, a secret police station in the name of hometown associations. Such organizations must be disbanded. They cannot allow to exist in this country. Guess what? This very association applied and was granted non-profit organization by United States government. That means taxpayer money is funding such organizations. How can this happen? This cannot happen again. We must stop this.
打倒共产党，打倒习近平，民主必胜，暴政必亡。
They are not as strong as we think. If everybody come down here, they will get.
Okay.
If we don't
you.
do nothing, they're here
Thank you.
forever.
Thank you.
If we do something, we all come out here, they will be good.
Thank you. 34 years ago, I was with millions on Tiananmen Square. It was there, for the first time, I believed that Chinese people love freedom and democracy, and they were willing to die for it, and the world witnessed their bravery through people like tankmen. There were hundreds of tanks. There were many tankmen. That's what we are hoping for. That's why we are here today. We want a free China. But I didn't imagine that 19 years later, on the streets of San Francisco, I was beaten by Chinese flag-waving crowds full of hatred to support CCP's Olympic. I was looking at the devil in the eye. it was that moment I realized we have to fight for this country, because if China is not free, this country is not safe. We are not safe. That's why I cannot rest at any moment to fight against such a regime. Thank you all for coming today. Today is just a starting point. We need more activities like this. We need more victims to speak out. For anyone like Yonghu who speak out, there are tons of them who are so afraid. Even though they are persecuted here by CCP, they are afraid to speak out. I can personally give you such names, dozens of them. End of last year, there is a A4 white paper movement in China. It was carried out by the Chinese students here in US universities. But one student was threatened that her hands will be cut off if she dared to post banners supporting Chinese democracy again. I'm very glad that FBI acted this time. Very timely, they charged this perpetrator. And this is what we need to do. We need to hold them accountable. And there's another one at University of California, Berkeley. A graduate student there burned down a memorial to the people who died in the Urumqi fire of Uyghur families. He burned it down, and he explicitly said, I want to purge this place of anti-CCP messages. This person is still at large. He is still studying at the University of California at Berkeley. He needs to be held accountable.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hold CCP accountable.
But this is just part of the pervasive influence of CCP in United States. More importantly, through trade, investment, and technology, Wall Street, academia, research institute, they are all under the influence of CCP. We must stop this. We need legislations to address the influence of CCP on Wall Street, on academia, on research institutes. I hope we will work together on this. We will not stop until China is free. Last 33 years, we have witnessed the failure of American policy towards China, ignoring human rights, China's freedom and democratization in favor of trade and technology exchange. That's what we are getting today. We don't have to look further. Look at this balloon. Everyone knows what it means. China without democratization is an enemy of the free world, is an enemy of the United States. We cannot cheat ourselves anymore. Thank you. Stop CCP!
Stop CCP!
Free China!
Free China!
Thank you. Now it's my honor to introduce a colleague of mine. This isn't his district, but we're close by his district, which is New York 5th, I believe. Did I get that right? 15. I got one number right in that. So I'm from Wisconsin. You know, we only have 8 districts. We don't count higher than that. So, but please join me in welcoming Congressman Richie Torres.
I'm honored to be here. I want to thank Chair Gallagher
for amplifying the voices of human rights activists whose voices have gone unheard for far too long. Even though Chair Gallagher and I come from opposing political parties, the unity we are projecting sends a powerful message that the defense of human rights from the abuses of the CCP We're sending a powerful message that the defense of human rights from the abuses of the CCP is not a Democratic value or a Republican value, it's an American value. Yes! I am not here because I'm a Democrat, and Mike and Neil are not here because they're Republicans. We are here because we're Americans who believe in the rule of law and human rights and freedom for every single person, including the Chinese dissidents here in the United States. We know that the CCP has a global system of surveillance that not only includes high-altitude surveillance balloons, but also oversees police stations. And we know that the transnational policing is not actually about the solving of crimes. It's about the systematic surveillance and suppression of political dissidents. It's about striking fear in the hearts of critics of the CCP. Freedom has no greater enemy than fear, and striking fear is the point of CCP policing. And so we have a moral obligation to stand with you, to stand for freedom fighters. How can we, the United States of America, claim to be a defender of freedom if we fail to defend freedom fighters within our own borders, here on U.S. soil? And so we have a moral duty to stand with you. A few years ago, the FBI said, the Justice Department said that it's committed to turning Operation Fox Hunt on its head so that the hunters become the hunted and the pursuers become pursued. And we will see to it that that promise is kept and that freedom is defended and justice for dissidents is delivered. Thank you.
And now, a man who truly is not used to this weather because he comes from Florida's 2nd District, a doctor, an Army doctor, a surgeon, Dr. Neil Dunn, my colleague and good friend.
Thank you very much, Chairman Gallagher. You even made it snow for me. I can't say thank you enough. This is actually the friendliest bunch of New Yorkers I've ever run into. They're great. They're great. And thank you also for welcoming us to your hometown. And Joe, I'm so proud of you. My God, the things you've done. The number one victim of the CCP is the Chinese people. Number one victim. But when they can come to America and do the same threatening tactics that they do at home, that threatens every one of us. There's nobody in America that's safe if we allow this to go on. We simply cannot tolerate this. It is against every bit of our moral fiber, everything we ever stood for. And I bring you good news. I just returned from meeting with NATO, and the NATO nations also recognize that this is a big threat to them. They are waking up. The awareness in Europe is getting stronger and stronger. So keep the pressure up. Keep it up here at home in America, home in China, and also in Europe, because the free world is rallying around you. We do hear your pleas. We are stunned. We are appalled by places like this. But we hear you, and we're responding. God bless you all for fighting. God bless you for the things that you put up with. You're heroes, all of you. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Well said. I like that sign that says, "Be free, don't be afraid."
Yes.
Mike, don't be free, don't be afraid. My colleague Richie Torres talked about fear as an instrument the CCP uses. What the CCP fears more than anything else is its own people. That's what they fear. And I want to make clear that the Chinese people are not our enemy. The Chinese people are the primary victims of CCP repression. And we stand with them against such repression. And that is what today is all about. So thank you for being willing to come out today. Thank you for fighting for freedom. We all are in this together. This is a beautiful, beautiful event, and I hope it's the first of many. And I'd like to, since you're all getting used to the snow, you're always welcome to come visit me in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Just bring a warmer coat, okay? With that, I think we're happy to... Oh, of course, yeah, of course. Then we'll answer some questions, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Let me introduce. This is Alan Chen. He's now executive director of China Democratic Party. We are honored to have him because for us, it's really hard in the last 34 years to recruit any young people into our camp. And he was a rare exception. He graduated from Columbia with master degree and a JD from St. John's.
Yes. All the alternative. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, President Mike. I think it's not a coincidence, yes, that President Mike just visited Taiwan last week, right? And this is the first stop that he comes to United States, Chinatown, which has so many Chinese, and the first stop abroad trip he went to Taiwan. So the meaning is that for United States government to fight against the CCP, which is the totalitarian regime in human history, which is the strongest evil regime in humankind history, United States government needs to fight the CCP regime together with anyone who is brave enough to stand against Chinese government, whether it's from Taiwan, whether it's Chinese from here, or whether they are Uyghurs, Tibetans from anywhere. So we know that United States in the past 70 years have already successfully kept the peace across the Taiwan Strait. It's very good. But right now we understand that Xi Jinping has a bad idea on the Taiwan. He wants to take over Taiwan. Actually, since the Xi Jinping was sent to Fujian province in around 35 years ago, he already had this idea. Now he's the #1 people in China. He wants to make this his personal dream to become true, that he will become the #1 person in the world. We have saying that he wants what's the Xi Jinping want? Xi Jinping wants he is the #1 of CCP. CCP becomes on top of Chinese people. Then CCP becomes the CCP control China becomes #1 country in the world. And for most of Chinese, almost any of Chinese, whether he is pro CCP or he's against CCP, he knows CCP's goal against United States is very clear that CCP regarded the United States as #1 enemy for the past 70 years. I'm sad to say that for the past at least 50 years or 40 years, United States government do not know this. Do not know that CCP regard U.S. as the #1 enemy, because CCP knows that he has a tyrannic country, he has a tyrannic regime, but the United States stand for the freedom in the past at least 100 years since the World War I, right? So it's very. I'm so glad to see that President Mike. Yes, Chairman Mike, yes.
I'm not old enough to be president.
Okay, Chairman, I'm sorry, yeah. I'm very happy to see that Chairman Mike makes the correct choice that CCP is enemy of the United States now. It's not the Chinese, Chinese is not the enemy of the United States. CCP is. And standing together with Chinese, United States government, United States people could take down CCP. Thank you.
Well, happy to answer any questions from the media.
Chairman, Brian
Sir.
Yes, Fox
Yeah.
News. It's been reported that you sent a letter to the FBI slamming them for their late response. Can you confirm that you sent a letter, and what was your message to the FBI?
I did send a letter to the FBI, really not to slam them, but to request a briefing for the entire Select Committee on China to understand how they're dealing with the issue of transnational repression broadly and CCP police stations in particular. I do think we need to do a lot of work in terms of equipping the FBI with the resources and expertise they need to act with greater alacrity in the future. I think there wasn't a quick enough response, but it was not intended to slam them. It was more to understand how are they thinking about problems like this, so the next time one of these police stations pops up, we can act quickly and make sure that nobody gets beaten up on the streets of New York. So we're hoping that the FBI Director Wray will come brief the committee. It can be behind closed doors. It doesn't need to be a media spectacle. Sorry to the media. But we just want to learn more, and we want to work productively with federal law enforcement and local law enforcement to defend American citizens and people that are living here in America from transnational repression.
Chairman Gallagher, you wrote the American Chamber of Commerce in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
What do you expect, or what would you like to hear from the AmCham?
Well, first, the concern about Hong Kong. If the American Chamber of Commerce is praising the rule of law in Hong Kong, in my opinion, I'm speaking just for myself, not the entire committee, they don't understand what's happening in Hong Kong. Because, of course, Xi Jinping eviscerated the rule of law in Hong Kong. And in so doing, and this was honestly one of the biggest takeaways from my recent trip to Taiwan, is they watched what happened in Hong Kong, and it has completely destroyed the idea of one country, two systems. That's a fiction that nobody believes anymore, such that even Xi Jinping's closest advisors, Wang Huning, foremost among them, is revising how they talk about one country, two systems, because they blew up that idea. So my hope is that the American Chamber in Hong Kong, business leaders everywhere, will understand what's going on and stand up for the rule of law, not praise the farce that is Xi Jinping's undermining of the rule of law.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you consider to make all those Chinese associations like this Hong Kong association with them to be like China agents like in
So I think you gave me the document earlier. I need to read it. I think we have an issue where people and organizations in the United States that are effectively acting on behalf of the CCP sometimes don't register as foreign agents, as is required by our law. Sometimes former members of Congress or high-level people in D.C. don't register under FARA, the Foreign Agent Registration Act, or the Lobbying Disclosure Agreement requirements. We need to tighten up all those procedures, so if you are acting as a spokesperson or a lobbyist or an agent of the CCP, you can't hide, and you certainly can't register as a nonprofit if you're going to harass people on American soil. So we're going to take a look at all those laws and make sure there aren't any loopholes that the CCP can exploit. Yes, ma'am. So I did 4 days in Taiwan. I would say my biggest takeaways are, one, our friends in Taiwan are doing a lot of the right things, increasing their defense spending, extending conscription from 4 months to a year. We need to be moving faster to arm them with the asymmetric weapons they need to defend themselves. And my friend was talking about peace. I agree. I think Xi Jinping's legacy issue is the reunification of Taiwan by force if necessary with the mainland. He's talked about it repeatedly. And if there's one lesson that we learned from Ukraine, it's that when dictators and authoritarians tell you they're going to do something, you might listen to that. So our best chance of preserving the peace, and that's what it's about peace. We're not trying, it's about peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait, is to give our friends in Taiwan the resources they need to defend themselves, as well as deepen our economic and diplomatic integration. So a lot of people are trying to move in the right direction. I don't think we're moving fast enough. It's why it's important to have members of Congress in bipartisan fashion go to Taiwan to understand what's happening there and support and defend the free world. Taiwan is on the front lines of authoritarian expansion right now. And though an actual kinetic war is not happening right now, what President Tsai calls cognitive warfare is happening right now. Attempts to instill fear in the Taiwanese people and collapse their will to fight and resist. So we need to stand with them, because I guarantee you that what happens in Taiwan will not stay in Taiwan. Las Vegas rules don't apply. We will be unable to fulfill our treaty commitments with Japan, the Philippines. We will be unable to project power in the Pacific. There will be attacks on our homeland, at least in the cyber domain, in any conflict with Taiwan. So we also have 100,000 American citizens there that we have to protect. So back there, yes, sir.
Congressman, how should the U.S. government respond if China sells lethal weaponry to Russia?
Well, there's some discussion about whether to declassify what's happening in terms of Chinese support to Russia. I think we should absolutely put it all in the public domain. I think one of the positive things the administration did during the initial parts of the invasion of Ukraine is really lean forward and declassifying information to show to the world what's going on. It's my opinion that increasingly Vladimir Putin is Xi Jinping's junior partner in a struggle against the West. Xi Jinping's able to buy cheap energy resources from Vladimir Putin right now. To separate these two problem sets, I think would be a mistake. So we should expose it, number one. We should look at the full suite of sanctions we have available, if indeed they go forward. But perhaps the best thing we can do is to learn the right lessons from Ukraine. And the lesson, in my opinion, of Ukraine is that in order to preserve the peace, you need to put hard power in a dictator's path to make him think twice. If we want to avoid another catastrophic collapse of deterrence like we saw 1 year and a day ago in Ukraine, across the Taiwan Strait, that's the lesson we need to learn.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Could you speak on the formulation of the committee and why it's important to have such a committee right now?
Well, and I would like to invite my colleagues to comment on this as well. Speaker McCarthy formed the Select Committee on China to elevate and inject with a sense of urgency the United States policy vis-a-vis the Chinese Communist Party, and to explain to the American people why this matters. Why should someone in Northeast Wisconsin care about the threat posed by the CCP or the fact that American citizens are being harassed on the streets of New York? It's our job to explain that. It's also our job to make sure that good ideas, good policy, and legislation, even in divided government, are advancing. And that's why we want it to be bipartisan. And in that spirit, I don't know, I invite my colleague Richie Torres to comment if you'd like to, or are you good? Or yeah, on the committee from the Democrat perspective? Yeah.
For me, the central challenge of our time is the strategic competition between the United States and the CCP. And it's not a single issue, it implicates every issue. And we have to ask ourselves, what kind of world do we want to live in? Do we want to live in a world that is led by the United States and governed by the rule of law and freedom? Or do you want to live in a world where you're subject to the surveillance of a government like the CCP? And I believe in the world order that we built because it has prevented 2 world wars, and it's given us the most productive and prosperous world we've ever known, and we should fight to keep it.
I just want to stress that this is a very, very bipartisan issue in Congress. In a divided government, we still have areas where we almost all of us agree right up and down the line. And nobody in Washington, no significant group in Washington, is opposed to doing something about China. And what Speaker McCarthy recognized was we weren't doing enough. And hence, he got Chairman Gallagher, put together a select committee that is seriously bipartisan and really works very well together to do exactly that, to counter this threat. It's going to be on many, many levels, and it's going to assume many, many characters. We've got a lot of work, and I look forward to helping you.
Yes, sir.
We had one issue in New York, like one NYPD officer was called FBI for spying on American America, but they don't justify because of it. So how can in the future avoid such incidents?
Yeah.
Where law enforcement officer has been used to collect information on like tobacco.
Yeah.
Who are living here. So how can
I think
give more people FBI or just money so that such incidents never happen in the future?
Well, one, please let's talk after so I can get the details of the incident. I think it's up to us in Congress to conduct oversight of the executive branch. I'm on the Intel Committee as well. We do oversight of the FBI, so we want to make sure that we know the details of these cases and that we're productively pressuring the FBI to do their job. So you have my assurances that I'll raise it with Director Wray, and I think we can have a more productive path going forward. So thank you. Yes, sir.
Any comments on Mayor Adams' alleged ties to the American Shangla Association, which hosted the police station? It's reported by the New York Post that Mayor Adams attended a gala hosted by the group.
I haven't read that specific report. I apologize. But I will say, I think one area where the Select Committee needs to play a leading role is in educating our colleagues about the nature of CCP United Front work. As those of you here today, you understand it, right? It's this unique combination of intelligence operations and influence operations. It's what Xi Jinping calls a magic weapon. It's been there since the creation of the CCP. It's embedded in their DNA. Most of our colleagues aren't aware of what United Front work is, and they are targets of United Front work, sometimes unwittingly. So on the Select Committee on the CCP, we are going to take on the job of educating our colleagues about United Front work and making sure that nobody is being targeted by an organization that has a innocent-sounding name like the Peaceful Reunification Committee, but actually reports directly to the United Front Work Department, which has thousands and thousands of people, many more than our own State Department, trying to undermine and subvert our democracy. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Gallagher, I would like to express our gratitude on behalf of the Falun Dafa community. We're still under the persecution from the CCP, and there recently still a lot of attacks here. And I just want to say that freedom of religion is really important, and America is still the beacon for people under the persecution all over the world. So we're just saying what you guys are doing are so great, and we want to express our gratitude.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And obviously, the origins of America involve fleeing religious persecution. So we have a duty embedded in our Constitution to protect religious freedom. So thank you very much.
Chairman,
Other question right there. Yes, sir. Yeah.
In the U.S., the U.S. government said Chinese is Chinese, Taiwanese is Taiwanese. We know that Taiwan is a country now, but in the future we have different regulated Chinese, Taiwanese, and Taiwanese, and how to choose is different.
I'm not sure I understand the question. I apologize. Yeah.
I can translate.
Yeah, sure.
His feeling is, can the ethnic group in China have the referendum for independence if the CCP collapse? Then what happened after CCP? Are they allowed to have execute their right to referendum? Why we come here? The Tibetan, the Hong Kong, they come here. They want to have a referendum for independence.
Yeah.
That's why you're talking about.
Well, we're here to stand. We're here to stand with all of these groups. We're here to stand on behalf of human rights and do what we can in Congress to fight to make sure that the CCP isn't repressing communities on American soil. And so that's what today is all about. I can say, having come back from Taiwan, as I said before, a few days ago, they're feeling the pressure right now. They're feeling that ideological aggression. They're feeling that cognitive warfare. And so simply by standing up together and expressing our solidarity with these groups, I think we can send a strong signal to the CCP. So that is what today is all about. I thank you all for being here. I think we maybe have time for one more question.
Sir, would you elaborate a little bit what the committee will do next week or few months?
The committee will be having its first hearing on Tuesday night in prime time. We urge you all to tune in. We are going to be having a hearing entitled "The Chinese Communist Party Threat to America," to understand how we got here, what we got wrong about the CCP, what we misunderstood, why this bet we made on integrating China into the global economy in the hope that it would moderate their political behavior, their aggression abroad, their repression at home, why that failed, and to understand what we need to know about the Chinese Communist Party in order to win this competition going forward. We have some great witnesses, including those who represent mothers from Tiananmen Square. It's going to be a great hearing. We're also going to be doing an event at the Victims of Communism Memorial on Monday night with a lot of the groups that you're familiar with, which will be another great event if you happen to be in Washington, D.C. Tuesday is also a day that's important for Hong Kong. We're going to be speaking about that, but this will be our first big hearing, and so we urge you all to tune in, and we look forward to working with you going forward. As my colleagues mentioned, we want this to be a bipartisan effort. I know we're not going to agree on 100% of everything. I'm not naive. I've been in Congress for 7 years. Nobody agrees on 100% of everything. I don't even agree with my own family on 100% of everything. But we want to identify what the bipartisan center of gravity is. And we believe, and the Speaker believes, that where possible, if Congress can speak with one voice when it comes to standing up against and pushing back against Chinese Communist Party aggression, America is stronger. The world is stronger. The free world is stronger. So that's what we're going to do. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for your words. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Let's take picture.
I got to give this back to somebody.
Can't wait for an
Is that yours? Did I drop another one? Yeah. I like you. Check this on me. Yeah.
Perfect. Should we do a picture real quick?
Can you take a picture? You guys get the medal?
Yep.
Please. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for helping us organize this. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic. What a great turnout. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mr. Congressman.
Did someone pop the balloon? You want to shoot it down? Yes, let it transit out across. Along the coast, though. Yeah, that's right.
Mr. Congressman, it's been so long.
Thank you.
We need your help. We need your help. Please. We've been keep fighting for 5 years, 6 years. I'm a member of the CCP. We really need to get